Welcome back to Real People, Real Lives. And we're back on Agenda 21, and we had left last segment with at a very interesting point. Carl, if you could get back where we were at.
Well, I touched base a little bit on the future because there are ongoing meetings on a monthly basis. We've converted the sustainability is now called the Prosperity Project because prosperity is much more politically correct.
Yeah, absolutely. I love prosperity.
I mean, everybody's in favor. Who's against prosperity?
Right.
And they realized that they had a marketing problem with sustainability. They hired a consultant, brought in the consultant. The consultant said, let's call it prosperity instead of
They're not progressives, they're liberals. No, we're progressives.
We're Marxists. But it's the whole view in terms of the collective. Whether we should we make decisions on an individual basis and have some responsibility for making those decisions and have some ability to fail. I'm a firm believer that we have this environment where nobody's allowed to fail anymore, and so nobody corrects mistakes. It just continues.
Our single greatest teacher.
And I've learned a lot more from my failures than from my successes, and I think that's true for most folks. But
absolutely.
But having said that, when you've got a fairly complicated, you've got a lot of different participants. This is part of a much bigger whole in terms of these grants, and I think the real key will be in terms of implementation. So it's something that folks need to be stay tuned over, because when the EPA is involved, for instance, I mean, we can't build a power plant out in western Kansas
EPA
anymore.
is Environmental Propaganda Agency.
Yeah, something like that.
I thought it was platypus.
Something like
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But between the Department of Transportation, HUD, and EPA, however we're going to call it, they all have a role in it. But the accountability and responsibility. I mean, if this thing falls flat on its face, and I think it will in the long run, but who's going to have ownership of it?
Yeah.
Because you've got REAP with all the different cities and counties who are involved, kind of at the forefront, and Sedgwick County's at the forefront as long as we're kind of the agency helping direct the grant to REAP and being the direct contact point with
There
the
was a
feds.
nation that had this similar program about 80 years ago, and their organization just had one name. It wasn't HUD, EPA, and DOT. It was Gestapo.
Well, we have good in government. We have good intentions. Now, there's limitations on that, like I pointed out, because I resent the heck out of the fact that we had to stock up on light bulbs because you couldn't get them otherwise, and we had these light bulbs that they said, they're going to be much better and they're much more expensive. They weren't much better. They were more expensive, and they were more expensive, and they didn't last any longer, and the light was funky, and
exactly.
And so you end up in the situation where you go, wait a minute. There's a wonderful book out there called Extortion by Peter Schweitzer, talking about how Washington, whether it's the political class or the bureaucratic class, are basically engaging in acts that, if it occurred in the private sector, would be considered extortion. And I recommend the book highly. It's been one that's been on my reading list for quite a while. But when you have a federal grant come to you, you then give up some of your ability to operate underneath it. And that's been a big problem for us, which is one of the reasons why we've had some battles at the county level over it. And it's a big issue between some of the folks who are running in today's election.
So is this reversible?
Well, hopefully it is.
Well, I know some states
before it causes too much damage.
Well, in the reading that I've done in the last, who knows how long, but at least in the last week, the key word that stands out to me is a non-binding contract between countries with the UN. Well, I'm not a big fan of the UN. Do you guys want to see little blue helmets running around your neighborhood?
Targets.
Probably not.
No, I mean, it's not what I want to see. And this is the United States of America. This is not the United States of the United Nations.
Yeah.
They want to have the European Union. They can have the European Union. They can have their euro. We will still have our dollar, no matter how devalued it may be. It's still my dollar that I take home with my paycheck. The UN talking about, maybe you can answer to this, maybe you've got a little bit more knowledge into it. I mean, straight from the UN document, where the United States and all other countries would turn over their military might to the United Nations, and the United Nations would hold all military power as a result of the United States and others turning over their military might. And it's disarming everything. I mean, it allows us to have a defense force, kind of like we in the United Nations allowed Germany and Japan to have, a defense force, or to maintain or corral the cattle, so to speak, the people.
Well, the aspect that we've had on the sustainability grant hasn't gotten in the Department of Defense involved on any level that I'm aware of. But I would say that there's a tendency for government to grow unless there's some strict restrictions on its ability to generate revenue. And sadly, when governments fail, all too often the solution is more government. I mean, we had a regulatory failure that led to the Great Recession in 2008, and the inability of the federal government to keep track of all these entities that they're supposedly regulating.
Yeah.
And so the solution was we'll pass Franken-Dodd legislation, and we'll add several thousand pages that nobody can understand. We're putting community bankers out of business. We're expanding too big to fail banks, and we're in an environment where we are going to have more government bureaucracy than we've ever had before. And so, and of course, this happened in the 30s too.
So should we buy stock in, Georgia Pacific because of all the paper they're going to use?
Well, Georgia Pacific's
more
not
government
public.
does mean more.
Georgia
More
Pacific
paperwork.
is not a public company, so
should go to work for you.
there's no way. So you can't pick that one out. But with computers, we're supposed to be going paperless, and I don't know whether I wouldn't hold my breath on the paperless side from government, but
Right.
They know about the EMP and stuff, so I mean, you never know. You can lose it all in a split second.
well, that's a whole different topic for another day.
It absolutely is.
But real quick, I was going to ask you a question, and I know this sounds uneducated, but I am unfamiliar with what REAP is. Should I know, the average Joe, should I know what REAP is?
Well, I think
does it affect me?
I think it's important because of regional government, and because it,
What?
What? Did I miss something?
God.
Yeah.
No, but when you ask the question, when you've got regional governments coming together, and sometimes you've got folks who aren't necessarily part of it, there's a distinction that gets blurred between the public sector and the private sector, because this is an entity that doesn't have statutory authority. The counties, the school districts, and the cities, we're all creations of the state of Kansas. We operate under state law. We don't have any authority on our own. REAP is kind of a voluntary entity of local governmental bodies, and they have as much authority as they're able to acquire, either formally or informally, through whatever role they're able to play. They've been involved in administering the Fair Fares program for several years in terms of the subsidized airfares here at Mid-Continent Airport, well, now Eisenhower Airport. Yeah, so to get back to your question, it's a real question of where the responsibility and accountability lie, because if this program fails in the way that I think it's likely to do, and the money will be wasted, and if we won't get positive results, who's going to be held accountable?
The taxpayer.
No, they'll get the bill, but
We'll get the
government.
accountable for the bill,
That's
but
the only accountability there is. Government by nature is to restrict. That's govern. A governor on an engine restricts its ability to overrun. That's what government does.
But
The
I'm
only
sure-
people ever held to account when government fails is the taxpayer, those who support the government.
So Agenda 21 is an international program in scope, but yet it's being implemented at the local level, at the regional
Through
level.
REAP?
REAP.
Well,
in different
here
groups.
locally, we're using REAP as playing a key role in this. But there's a tremendous amount of information online, and if your viewers, and you ask, how can people get more informed?
Absolutely.
I'd urge them to look at that information that's available online. Do their own research. There's some controversy on it, and there's some back and forth in terms of how much impact it has. And some folks have said, hey, there's going to be military aspects to it, but the real focus I have at this point is my concern. I think back to what Abraham Lincoln said back in the 1830s about, that Napoleon and all his armies could never get a drink from the Ohio. But if we really ran into problems, it would be something we did internally on our own. And so we're in a challenging, I think it was President Reagan who said, "You're only liberty is only one generation from losing
extinction." Yeah.
As we found out last week with Common Core, we're
Right.
quickly going to get rid of that knowledge that we've all possessed of our founders.
You know, and that's really scary because that's something that Common Core brought to light is that, you know, I think they're trying to dumb us down. And I think that this goes along with it, this Agenda 21 on trying to take basically being able to be self-reliant away
Well,
from.
when you have propaganda books like Howard Zinn's ridiculous history of the United States as a textbook, I mean, another sorry Marxist. There is an effort in terms of dumbing down. Dinesh D'Souza's book America is a wonderful antidote for anyone out there who is interested
What
in reading.
book was that?
America
Also
by
in a
Dinesh
movie
D'Souza,
coming.
and there's the movie's out there
right now.
too.
Okay.
And the book is too. It's on top of the nonfiction bestseller
Excellent.
list.
Now, I always thought that Groucho Marx and his brothers were the greatest, but this Carl guy, I don't know. See, Sam, you're a good Carl, but that other Carl, that's
He was the bad cousin.
he was the bad, yeah.
Too many people quote him and live by him, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
We're in an environment where there's a lack of accountability in terms of government, and we're in a situation where elections, it's going to be important for people to turn out, and I hope we've had a good turnout today. Our advanced voting, because you don't have election day anymore. It's almost election month.
Yeah.
I mean, we started voting last month. I
Yeah.
think it was the 17th or 18th of July, and people have been able to get advanced ballots, absentee ballots in effect, and we've had satellite voting going on at a bunch of locations around the county.
We voted Friday.
Well, Carl, you've actually answered the question I was going to get you here.
Oh.
We're coming up on our next commercial break, and I wanted to get your thoughts on what this recent election. I mean, today is election day. We're going to get
Well,
some
I
results.
outside money,
We'll have
guys.
results in
I mean,
just a couple
outside
of hours
money's
to
been
see what's going
tremendous.
on. Without naming anyone in particular, just out of the fairness. I mean, what do you think how has this election gone? At this
Well,
point?
the frustration I have is relatively low voter turnout. I mean, we've gone out of our way to make it easier for folks to vote. And I understand the frustration because there are some offices today, for instance, I voted a couple days ago, in fact last week, and when I voted for my local legislative candidate, there was only one candidate on the ballot.
Oh, goodness.
And in effect, he was reelected when he filed back in June. So, I mean, we've got at least two deeply contested county commission races, but we've got one county commission race which basically was decided on the filing deadline
Yeah.
when the incumbent filed.
That's
No
so
Democrat filed, no Republican filed, and so these in effect
default.
all but been reelected.
Well, I'll say this to you: if you didn't vote, I don't want to hear you gripe.
Well, we've got 10 more minutes.
That's right. You
10 more
still got
minutes.
time. Get out there and vote.
Please, do vote.
Yeah, 10 more minutes. Go. Get out there and do it.
All right, then we're going to go ahead and wrap up and then a commercial break to pay our bills, and then we'll right back. Real people, real life.
Real People, Real Life is brought to you by these fine sponsors.
At Trailer Town, we're all about selection, service, and safety. Trailer Town Selection, hundreds to choose from, small to large, lightweight aluminum to heavy-duty steel, all types, new and used. Trailer Town Service, the best in the Midwest, from wiring to axle repair. Trailer Town Safety, yes, we do Department of Transportation inspections. Trailer Town, trusted, family-owned, 301 West 53rd Street North.
Hammond Liquor, home of the coldest beer in town and the lowest prices store-wide. For all your special events, your friends at Hammond Liquor have what you need, from beer, wines, spirits, champagne, and more. Open till 8 p.m. every Sunday. Hammond Liquor, West Kellogg and Tyler Road.
Knapp Weaponry is the home of Wichita's newest indoor temperature-controlled shooting range. Mention this ad for 2-for-1 pricing weekdays from noon to 4. Knapp Weaponry is an NRA Business Alliance member that offers NRA and state-certified instruction classes, training, and women's unarmed self-defense classes. We buy and sell new and used guns and offer gunsmith services. Knapp Weaponry offers a free range session with the purchase of a new gun. We also offer transfer services and an array of ammo. Knapp Weaponry, the West Side's best-kept secret.
Credit King Auto Sales is getting better all the time. We're doing it better. We're doing it better all the time.
saving you money big time and saying thank you, Kansas, for making Credit King Auto Sales the #1 buy here, pay here dealer. #1 for sales, service selection, and customer satisfaction. Right now, our summer blowout sale is going on with, get this, 2 years of free gas. Only at Credit King Auto Sales at the King's Corner, 31st South and Broadway. Go CreditKing.com.
Welcome back to Real People, Real Life. We're into our focus on business segment here, and we have the plant shop from Karma Connections on East Douglas, and John Brown's going to tell us about these future Democrats and the cactus party that we've got coming up.
Cactus are independents, actually. They're not affiliated.
I should have not liberal.
I'm actually I'm here to talk about the 17th annual Rare and Exotic Cactus Show and Sale that we're going to have at the plant shop at Karma Connections. The origin of the show was 1998 at Nature's Way. We decided that there was a great interest in cacti and succulents, and not a whole lot of knowledge about the differences between, for example, everyone knows aloe vera plant there, but all the rest of these here are also aloes, and some of them are rare and expensive aloes. So during the course of the normal year, if we were to try to sell the $5 aloe for the same price as a $20 aloe, it was very hard to sell the more expensive aloe for the right price. But during the Rare and Exotic show, we were able to do that, and we were also able to explain it. And the cactus guru from Midwest Cactus was one of I thought, the best resources we had. So I thought if we could get him in front of the people 2 days a year with the expensive rare cactus, it would be a much better deal. These cactus here are all euphorbias. They are the largest family of cactus. This one here is a crown of thorns, which is the same relative of the same plant that was used in biblical times. This one here is an albino cactus called a white ghost, Euphorbia white ghost.
Now you're getting racial, see?
Yeah, exactly.
It's always somebody.
It's a gringo.
All of these plants, all of the cactus, and most plants in general, are used for some sort of medicine. They're used for to make certain things. This plant here, the Euphorbia, all of these plants were used to make rubber in the war when we ran out of rubber trees. They all have on the inside a white substance that's a latex that can be used to make rubber. These plants here are elephant's feet, Dioscorea. Those plants are used in the synthesization of hormones like cortisone. This one down there, the bursera, is an antiseptic. It's also a very good smelling plant. It smells like myrrh. And at the cactus show, there are just there's thousands of different varieties that we couldn't fit in the shot.
So these plants have a higher IQ than Democrats.
I wouldn't say that.
At least not on record. Real quick, can I ask you a question? You were saying that some aloes more expensive than others, and I frequently get sunburnt.
Right.
So I'm wondering which ones of my grandma's I'm actually killing, if I should be using them or not, because she has several different looking aloes.
Well, first of all, what makes them more expensive is the rarity and how quickly they grow. And the aloe vera, this one, which is what most all products that are used for sunburn is made out of, grows the fastest. All aloe has medicinal qualities for burns, but the aloe vera, as long as you're using the aloe vera, it will always be.
And these grow slower?
They grow slower. They have less juice in them, I guess.
I've noticed some of those do have less.
They do. They grow slower. And that's really what makes a plant expensive or not expensive is how long you have to grow it for.
So real quick, you threw out there that one's $5.
Basically, yeah. That's basically a $5 plant.
Because there's the regular. Do they have different names? Like, should I look for a different name on them?
Different, just any...
Will they all just say aloe, and I will have to be educated?
Pretty much.
Which is why I will have to attend...
What's that?
It doesn't have a sign that just says burn stuff?
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
When I was out in Arizona, they had those huge things. We have any of those?
What is that?
We will have some of the Swaros. We've had them in the past as tall as 6 or 7 foot tall, which would make them nearing 100 years old. Still not old enough to produce arms yet. But we won't have any more bigger than this size right here.
Okay.
Now, we had talked about this one a moment ago. Can you tell me what this is?
Yeah, what I was telling you before was the nickname I had for it, the Polissimo Dildoii.
Right.
It does look like that a lot.
Yeah. But this is a totem pole. This is a kind of rare cactus, but what makes collectors love it is there's never two alike.
Oh, awesome.
No matter what, you take seeds, you take
Bonsai
cuttings,
trees.
they'll never be the same.
Awesome.
That's it.
Now, how old is that plant approximately?
That plant actually is probably about 20 years old.
Goodness.
But that isn't that isn't the age it would be if it were in the desert, in its native habitat. Grown in a greenhouse in a hothouse, which this one was, it's much slower growing.
So are they similar to fish? The containment that they're in restricts their size?
Well, yeah, and the growing season. You know, one thing about cactus, one of the most interesting things, is that in nature, they have to go dormant. They go dormant. They get no rain for 3-4 months at a time. That's what cactus do. But if you put them into a different environment where you control the temperature, you can do one of two things. You can make them grow faster by kind of getting rid of the dormancy, only giving them like 1 month of dormancy. They all need to go dormant. They need to sleep, as they would call them, for a certain period of time. You can slow down their growth, or you can speed up their growth based on how much sun you have. But in the cost to heat greenhouses in places here is so high that generally speaking, people slow down the growth because they have allowed to get to in the 30s or 40 degrees all winter long.
Now there's a really peculiar looking one over there. You called it what, an elephant's foot?
The elephant foot is one of the most interesting things to me. That they grow a vine that's almost like Jack and the Beanstalk vine. The vine grows underneath a canopy of trees, and it will grow all the way to the top. If it's 30 meters, it'll grow to the top of that and get up above it and to get light in order to keep this plant going.
Wow.
But this plant, it's also called a Mexican wild yam.
Can you eat it?
You can. It's not toxic or edible is kind of how it's classified. It won't make you sick, but you really know nutritional value. But it's used to synthesize hormones. It's the base.
Medicinal.
Yes.
Awesome.
It's medicinal, definitely.
It looks like a turtle.
Yes.
You know, you
Does
easily
look like a
confuse it as a turtle, couldn't you? That's crazy. It does.
Yeah, and they have beautiful blooms, but you rarely see them in captivity.
So there's a lot of people in Wichita that have overdosed on that with all the hormone problems we have here.
Yeah, I think so.
You've had too much elephant's foot, have you?
I wish I knew more of the process because it's.
Where did that foot go anyway?
It's used. It was one of the first things used. I know in the early contraceptive pills.
Oh.
That plant was used to synthesize, but in and of itself, I don't believe it contains that hormone. They use it helps create it.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
it's a catalyst.
Yeah, one of them.
That's how they get started.
And this is something else to talk about. The crests here. The crests, just like the variegata here, are basically just genetic abnormalities. What happens is if you were to take the normal version of this cactus, if you were to take 100,000 seeds from the same plant and germinate all of them in a tray, you might have a few of them that came out crested like that. That's all they are. They're not a different variety. They're just a genetic abnormality that happens. And then at that point, a lot of times growers or collectors will take cuttings off of that plant so they can keep it going, just like in any other scenario with fruits or vegetables.
Are cactuses threatened in the wild?
Lots of them are threatened in the wild. We have quite a few cactus that we can't sell anymore since just in the last 17 years because they can't be. They still believe it or not. Well, I'm sure you believe it. They still are harvesting them in Mexico and trying to bring them, but it's completely illegal to sell them.
Are those like the dog ears or the hens and chickens?
Well,
those are the ones I've seen all over growing up.
No, those are definitely not endangered, but like the Ariocarpus is one that it's similar in looks, I guess, to the elephant's foot. It is becoming endangered. It's grows so slow. They only propagate by seed. It takes them so many years. People start harvesting them, or when they start, just like the rainforest, when they start clearing the ground to do other stuff, they become endangered. And if you're in Arizona and you try to mess with those cactuses, you can, or other states that are BLM,
they're protected.
Yeah, you'll certainly be in
Bureau of
trouble.
Land Management.
Bureau of Land Management, yeah, definitely be in big trouble.
Large movement.
Yeah.
This is actually what the Bundy thing was all about, I believe.
It was all about cactus and turtles. I think.
Yeah.
No, John. This one here has leaves on it.
Which
the right here in front of you.
This one?
Yeah. That's I've never seen a cactus with leaf.
And it
really.
will drop leaves. It grows leaves and drops leaves every year, just like a tree, sort of. But yeah, it helps in photosynthesis to have more leaves to grow. It helps it grow faster. The red one in front is another variety of the euphorbia, rubra.
What about this one right here? This really tall one.
With that one there?
Yes.
It's a Euphorbia amex. It's another variety that is genetically it's abnormal, kind of like not quite an albino, but it has a pigment
issue.
Yeah, exactly.
So to speak.
Yep.
So these would all be considered rare and exotic?
No, exotic for sure. Not all rare, but just different. Once I brought this one to try to illustrate, the easiest. The pencil cactus is the easiest one to propagate, and it's also not any problem for me to break it off because it'll
doesn't damage it in any way.
But all you do with it's true with all these euphorbias, but you just allow the white blood, I guess, to form a scab, which happens very quickly in this plant. You stick it in the dirt. Growing up, there were 3 families that all had 8 foot tall by 6 foot wide pencil cactuses that came from the same little plant. And we just passed them around. They grow very fast.
Really? You just stick them
in? This kind, the inexpensive, common, fast-growing varieties of euphorbia are the kinds that they use to make latex and rubber out of at certain times.
If we want to learn more about cactus and buy some this weekend, where we go?
1123 Douglas. It's the plant shop at Karma Connections. It's the 17th annual Rare and Exotic Cactus Show. The first 14 years were at Nature's Way, and the last 3 years have been at Karma Connections. But it's the same grower, the same cactus guru.
What time Saturday? What time Sunday?
9 to 4 on Saturday and 10 to 4 on Sunday. Free refreshments. I make sure we never run out. And
Bacon Country will be in the house programming. So
awesome.
Yeah. And children under 12 get a free starter cactus.
Awesome.
Lots of little examples of these unusual cactus on sale.
Well, we're looking for that. Contrary to popular belief, he and I are not related. We just have the same hair. But thank you for watching Real People, Real Lives. We'll be back next week. And if you want to see the 17th Annual Exotic and Rare Cactus Show, visit us at Karma Connections this weekend. Thanks, you guys.
All right, let's go get some results.
Right.
The views expressed in the preceding program do not necessarily represent the views of this station or its management.
Knapp Weaponry is the home of Wichita's newest indoor temperature-controlled shooting range. Mention this ad for 2-for-1 pricing weekdays from noon to 4. Knapp Weaponry is an NRA Business Alliance member that offers NRA and state-certified instruction classes, training, and women's unarmed self-defense classes. We buy and sell new and used guns and offer gunsmith services. Knapp Weaponry offers a free range session with the purchase of a new gun. We also offer transfer services and an array of ammo. Knapp Weaponry, the West Side's best-kept secret.
Karma Connections 1123 East Douglas wants everyone to enjoy awesome karma. From our one-of-a-kind natural healing arts massage therapies to our plant shop now open with specials every day. Unique gifts, one-of-a-kind finds, treasures made by local artists. A must-see, our new line from House of Fur Babies. Our fur babies love some awesome karma too. Check out the Bacon Cave, home of worldwide baconrock.com radio. From our family to yours. Love, peace, natural healing, wonderful giggles, always awesome karma.
At Economy Motors, we know that everything costs more these days. Gas costs more, utilities cost more, groceries cost more. But what's one thing that will not cost you more? Buying your next vehicle with us. Everything we have is priced $12,995 or under. Bad credit, no worries. No crazy gimmicks and no bait and switch. We keep it real. Economy Motors, home of Easy Pay. We've got your back.
Don't worry, please.